At this time, I'll call the Oak Island Town Special Meeting to order, December 17, 2019. And we'll ask Councilmember Blaylock to give us a pledge of allegiance and the invocation, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, bless us as we come here tonight to do the business of our town. Bless us with the wisdom to do the right thing that's the best for all, and always done in a spirit of respect. In God's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Blaylock. Before we start into our public comment section of the agenda, I'd like to offer my condolences to Councilmember Weinkauf. He's lost a brother who was like a father to him, and out of respect, last week is why we canceled the meeting to this week. Totally out of respect, Jeff. We're so sorry for your loss. All right, open the public comment sections, Lisa.
And you're going to be timing them?
Excuse me? I got time.
You have it? Okay.
Let me state, when you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address, and you still have a 3-minute time limit.
Mike Defio.
Hi, I'm Mike Defio, I'm at 902 West Yacht. I've come here tonight to talk a little bit about Pine Forest and the $20 to $40 million bond issue. I've been asking for transparency on this thing for well over a month without any success. However, I was able to collect some info from developers, from staff, and other sources, including the details of this DEC contract that will be discussed later tonight. Here's some facts as I know them. Pine Forest apparently is not able to obtain financing from the private sector. This being true, this has got to be an enormous red flag. Pine Forest developers are downsizing the plans to 1,000 units, and they have asked Oak Island to agree to obtain a $20 to $40 million bond to pay for the development of these 1,000 units. Now, this evening, Oak Island, we will be discussing the contract with DEC. That's going to define the assessment zones, and it's going to cost us $10,000. It was a little contrast to some of the information that was given during the month that this project would not cost us a penny. The deal, as I understand it, is that Oak Island will provide $20 to $40 million for the development of the 1,000 units. The Pine Forest will develop the 1,000 units with the expectation that the selling price will be between $400,000 and $450,000 per unit. As each unit is sold, the new homeowners then will be assessed an additional $30,000 to $50,000 by Oak Island to pay towards the bond. This would be our welcome to these new residents. Pine Forest developers will end up paying nothing toward that bond. They pay it all through the assessments. And in effect, the Pine Forest developers get to walk away with $450 million in gross sales. Now, Oak Island will get nothing in return for assuming this risk other than the tax revenue that they would have gotten anyhow if it had been privately financed. Now, what if it fails? We're going to be responsible for paying off that bond, along with any other liabilities associated with the project. And because of that, we could very easily have a lot of difficulty attaining funding for other projects. And in the worst case scenario, we probably could be facing bankruptcy again. Pine Forest developers get to walk away. Now, to me, this is just wrong.
Mr. DeFeo, I'm sorry. that you're
I'm up?
That's, I don't know what happened. We lost our regular thing tonight, so.
Could you give me just a few seconds? Because I want to say,
Seconds.
just comment to you.
Seconds.
All right. No, I was hoping I have a few seconds to thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
All right. I think you've accomplished a lot, and I really appreciate it. I've talked during the campaign a lot about taking advantage of the staff and the talents of the residents of Oak Island, and I certainly think you fit in that category. And I hope the new mayor in this council has the wisdom to take advantage of those skills and those talents that you have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeFeo.
Ed Drzewiecki.
Ed Drzewiecki, 128 Northwest 19th Street. I'm also here to speak about the DEC Associates. I got a lot of information just from the person that spoke in front of me than I had prior to coming to the stand here, so some of this may be repetitive. I'm here to voice my concern about the contract being considered for financial advice with DEC Associates. It is my understanding this organization will be hired to assist the town in planning a special assessment district in the Pine Forest development. This agreement will review the financial planning that potentially could lead to the issuance of a town's special assessment bonds or bonds. The Developer Equity Investment Associations has approached our town to consider issuing bonds to pay for public improvements within the development. Here are the concerns. How long has this been in the works, and why hasn't there been any public conversation about this proposal? My first knowledge of this was when I read about it in the agenda last week. How much are the amounts of the bonds? There has to be some kind of ballpark figure to have started this bonding discussion. Obviously, we're talking in the $20 to $40 million range, which we just discovered. How much are the, let's see, can we afford to add more debt to the town that is already heavy in debt from the sewer bonds that were issued several years ago? We remember how those numbers more than tripled throughout that project. What impact will it have on the town's credit rating? Do we want to become business partners with the developer? With this type of bond, we will have a financial interest in the completion and the success of the project. Assessments are paid by lot owners in the development. Unpaid lots are the responsibility of the contractor. What would happen if the developer walked away from the project? What will the real estate and economic situation be 5 or 10 years down the road? Will there be a recession? More than likely. Will it affect the town council's ability to make the correct decisions concerning the project with a multi-million-dollar bond being involved? Will decisions be made on how the bond will be affected? In for a penny, in for a pound. Also, I have to question the wisdom of this proposal just on the fact that it's so rarely used. Over the 10 years that this type of bond has been in existence, a few towns in North Carolina have considered them, but decided against them being issued. It is so rarely used in North Carolina that in my research I could only find one town that has used the special district bonding. That town is Hillsborough. So before we proceed, I think that more public discussion is warranted. Please vote no on this agreement so the public can be better informed about this issue. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you.
Betty Hupp.
I'm Betty Hupp. I live at 7916 East Yacht Drive, and I'm speaking extemporaneously because I didn't have time to prepare a speech. But what I want to say is that Stockton, California, issued a bond because a developer wanted to have sewer and water extended to his property. So the town of Stockton, California borrowed money and extended it. The contractor went belly up. So Stockton, California, saddled with more debt than they could possibly pay, went bankrupt. How do I know this? I had a good friend who lived there. So what I'm saying, number one, we're short one council member tonight. Number two, please think long and hard before you put us into any more debt than we already are with 801, the pier, beach renourishment, you name it, and we're in debt for it. So please do not do this. Thank you.
Sorry, there's a lot crossed out here. Matthew Troetti?
I'm Matt Troetti. I'm the owner of Never Ever Boards at 8813 East Oak Island Drive. If everyone could stand that's here for the skate park.
Awesome.
So as you guys can see, that alone speaks volumes. We have a lot of people here. You can see how important it is to the community. It will help enrich the community, opening up the skate park. Now a lot of kids, they may not have the money to pay to go to the skate park, or you know, they have a better option going to the skate park than something else, you know, than the alternative. So having the skate park open to the community free, I think would be huge for the kids in this area, to give them something positive to do, and just something that would be really good for the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Hayden or Holden Lynch?
Hi everyone, I'm Hayden Lynch. I'm just here to represent the youth that supports the opening of the skate park. I created the petition online that has over 800 signees, and I have everybody in the back here to come support that. The skate park has been open for 15 years now, I think, and there's not much that's changed with it. I think it's been pushed aside by the council and by the town a little bit without the attention to be put on it. And I'd just like to explain the support we have for opening it and everybody else.
Thank you.
Dara Boyle?
Darrell Royal, 216 Northeast 47th Street. Good evening. Item 17 on tonight's special meeting agenda is consideration of contract with DEC DEC Associates for financial services. The contract is, quote, specific to a preliminary financial planning engagement related to a potential special assessment district proposed to the town and potentially culminating in the issuance of special assessment revenue bonds. According to the contract, this comes at the request of Equity Investment Associates, the developer of Pine Forest. DEC Associates would explore the initial financial information provided by the developer. Isn't this contract getting the cart before the horse? The first step in the statutory procedure would be a formal petition from Equity Investment Associates presented to Town Council during a public meeting. According to North Carolina General Statute 160A 239.3a, a petition must include an estimate of the cost of the project and an estimate of the portion of the cost of the project to be assessed. There is no public record of a petition presented to Town Council that meets the statutory requirements. Why hasn't this initial financial information been provided to Council by the developer during a public meeting? Please, don't try to dress up this contract by saying the town needs to do its homework. According to Councilmember Jeff Weinkoff, talks have been ongoing with town officials since July. I encourage you to just vote no on the contract with DEC Associates. Also, according to town officials, 2 presentations are proposed for a January town hall style meeting: the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and Pine Forest Development Plans. I encourage you to cancel the Pine Forest presentation. Instead, why not add presentations on projects to improve the town's existing infrastructure, street repairs, and stormwater drainage? How about a quarterly financial report on this year's budget, including current fund balances? Don't forget about hurricane reentry decals. And remember, there will be more yard debris and rights-of-way waiting to be collected in the spring. Thank you for your consideration.
Stephanie Bumgarner.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Bumgarner, and we live on 2608 West Yacht Drive, and I'm a parent of 2 boys that love to skateboard. And I'm here to encourage them because instead of just complaining about this, they've done something about it. Several of them went to the Oak Island Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting and talked to them about it, and they were heard and encouraged by that group. There are specific requests that I'm not sure, and I did email a copy of the petition to all of you earlier, is to extend the hours to include evening hours. I think when Hayden mentioned that he doesn't feel like the town council supports the skate park, I think you don't see the number of kids that would utilize the park, because we've got hours that are open in the heat of the day during the summer. They can last about an hour. So if we extended the hours and they were able to skate, after dark, when it's a little bit cooler, and after they get off work. I mean, a lot of these kids have jobs and can't get there until 5:30. So that was important to all of them. And that when they do go, there aren't people there to unlock the gate during the posted hours. So if it was unstaffed, that would allow the kids to be able to use it when they need to. Carolina Beach has hours after dark, and that's the other thing. They're driving up and down the road, and that's unsafe. It's also unsafe that they're skating in the roadways around Oak Island. But I think that you would see the amount of kids that actually would utilize it if you went and the hours were later. And finally, if it was unstaffed and the town police came by to sort of monitor it or just drive by, I think there are valuable relationships there to be built, between the youth and the police force. I just think it would be great. And I'm very proud of the kids for doing this on their own. So, way to go. Thank you.
Roseanne Fortner.
Oh, by the way, I applaud all the young people that came out tonight and organized this great idea. I personally agree with you. We may have overlooked the skateboard, but honestly, I did not know this many kids used it. But thanks for doing that. I think the council will be very interested to hear what you have to say, and we'll look at your ideas and consider them seriously.
Good evening. Roseanne Fortner, 113 Paula Circle for the Oak Island Beach Preservation Society, Incorporated. Happy holidays from the new nonprofit Beach Preservation Society, Inc. I hope you've had a chance to come to some of our events this fall. Most recently, we hosted North Carolina's Sea Grant Educator for our second public lecture. It was at 801 Ocean, an excellent venue for this type of event. We also enjoyed being part of the Christmas parade, and our Christmas cards that we distributed as we walked through the crowds have information on how to contact us all year. There are extra copies of this on the table if you'd like to pick one up. We would like to offer our sincere thanks to outgoing Mayor Sin Brochure for her support over the years. Among other things, Mayor Brochure started the Flash Sweep idea, hosted an ambassador's gratitude dinner, and convinced a local restaurant to offer us a percentage of their receipts for the beach. She was always there for the volunteers who served, and her support of beach preservation was much appreciated. Mayor Thomas, we look forward to working with you. Looking ahead, our Gala wine tasting fundraiser will be April 4th from 1 to 4 p.m. at 801 Ocean. The space and the time are different this year, so mark your calendars. You don't want to miss this. The fundraiser theme is On Cloud Wine, and tickets will go on sale in February to everybody. You don't want to miss this event. As we come to the end of 2019, we take stock of what we've done as an all-volunteer organization. Through our members, our board of directors, the beach ambassadors, and the Adopt a Beach Access parents, about 390 beach preservation volunteers worked for the beach in our 34 activities and programs. Those 390 people engaged thousands of people from the public, from the tourist groups, and so forth. They contributed 10,803 hours of service to the beach. Now, who cares? What's a volunteer hour worth? It's free, right? We're volunteers. The current value, according to Independent Sector, the current value of a volunteer hour in North Carolina is $24.19. Every hour we contributed was worth that much. So beach preservation activities in 2019 were worth a whopping $261,324, more than $250,000 in service contributed to the town and the beach. We are so proud of this level of service, and we invite you all to contribute to what we can do in 2020. Again, happy holidays to all from Beach Preservation.
Thank you, Ms. Fulton.
Grant Wallace.
I'm Grant Wallace. I live on Northeast 51st Street. I want to thank y'all for your time. I've been skating at the Oak Island Skate Park since I was probably 8 years old, and it has consistently dropped in hours that it's been available. And due to that, I think a lot of skaters have been displaced and forced to drive all over the state, to Apex even, to go skate. And if it was open more often, it gives kids something to do. Just get exercise, get off the couch, get outside. It'd be really important to build friendships between kids my age, 22, and younger kids, and that gives younger kids good role models. The skate park is running on an old system of management where they have someone there to supervise and you pay to enter. And today, many skate parks in the state and in the country have changed to unsupervised systems where the skate park's free, and it allows people to use it a lot more. And that'd be really important for the community. I talked to the Tony Hawk Foundation, and if we were to adapt this model of management, they would likely be willing to help us and provide grants to update the skate park and continue to keep it safe for everyone to use. So just once again, thank you, and have a nice night.
Thank you.
Helen Cashwell.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Helen Cashwell, 3407 East Yacht, Oak Island. The elections are over, and we're starting anew tonight. Thanks for all the council members for returning, and best wishes to our mayor, Sin Brochure. And we thank you for all the hard work and service that you've done and that you've devoted to the town, and wish you the best.
Thank you.
Welcome to our new mayor coming in, and we sincerely hope that your endeavors prove fruitful as you would like. The contract for Pine Forest that is in the council's agenda tonight was a completely unexpected surprise. And I will say at the very beginning, you must not vote this contract. There's been very little mention of this large medical development in the public since a planning board meeting of March the 15th, 2018. It was presented by Mark Bramble for Equity Investments, a financial expert who raises money for various large developments or institutions, and he has been the only representative at the few meetings that have mentioned Pine Forest. Without benefit of a public hearing or public discussions, he has asked Oak Island to enter into a contract that will surely push the financial needs on to the town of Oak Island. November the 13th of 2018, a public hearing was held for a special use permit to grant vested rights for a phased development plan for a planned unit development known as Pine Forest, and it listed 5 parcels. Planning and Zoning Administrator Jake Varus explained all the details. Nothing had been passed to any of the department heads in the town for review, and then that DOT would have to do a detailed study. The public hearing was very contentious and brought out many issues, and if you printed it out, which I did, it was 13 pages long, and it included surrounding property access around Pine Forest and an unknown road behind it. After 2 hours, the hearing was closed without settlement, and it's not been brought out again. I'd like to read you a piece of the information that was in that, and our attorney, Mr. Eads, was doing the questioning about what was going on. Mr. Eads said there were 2 properties to the north of the development that are not owned by the applicant, and he asked Mr. Bramble if that was correct, and he said it was. Mr. Eads asked Mr. Bramble if, to his knowledge, there was any agreement between the applicant and either of the adjacent property owners to the north with respect to this applicant. Mr. Bramble said that he just found it out that week, and he didn't know. So even at the very beginning, when they're coming to us and asking us for permission for a planned special use permit, they still didn't know the details. Other than mentioning groundbreaking for the development on a councilman's report last year, there has never been mentioned again. The surprise contract is before you should never be considered without a special meeting about what the financial impact of this development means to our town, property taxes, and since Novant is a leaser and it's not for property, what will be expected from the town regarding infrastructure? Who will be responsible? Fire stations, police stations, and staff, to mention the most. Please stop this now.
Thank you, Ms. Gates.
Liz Grimm. Sorry.
Good evening. Liz Grimm, Carolyn, 106 Northwest 13th. Good evening. I'm going to read an email that I sent all of council regarding the DEC plan. What I did not include in that email is when I moved to North Carolina 15 years ago, my address was 9 Cates Court, Hillsborough, North Carolina. I lived there for several years through the muni bond that they did with their development up there. So I do have that experience as a citizen in regards to my comments. I wrote you all last week to ask that you table or decline entirely the discussions to enter into contract, explore contracts, or in any way fund the development of Pine Forest with muni bonds or any other way that will cost the citizens of Oak Island, both now or in the future. $20 million is not a soundbite, as one council member has suggested, and if we qualify for that in bonds, I believe it is much more prudent and fiscally responsible to use that type of bonding for our town's infrastructure, such as street paving, beach renourishment, or sewer improvements. There is absolutely no guarantee in Pine Forest being successful enough to be financially solvent enough to sell the amount of homes that would be needed to repay those monies. If there were such a guarantee, the developer would not be approaching you with this option. Should the economy crash again or the developer enter into bankruptcy, as it is an LLC, the liability of the bond would be disastrous for Oak Island. There is no reason to have a developer come in and tell us why this is a good idea. It is nothing more than a seriously misguided gamble of our money and our credit rating. Please tell this developer to go back to his investors and fill his coffers that way. We do not need another tarnish mark on our town, as previous projects have resulted in. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I had signed up for.
That's it for tonight. Is anybody that didn't get a chance to sign up would like to speak before we close the session of the agenda? All right. Moving on to the council reports. And I'm going to start, since I'm the outgoing mayor, and I'd like to take just a moment to thank the citizens of Oak Island and all those that supported me for the last 4 years for their support, first of all, and for allowing me to serve this beautiful community. I love Oak Island, and I don't, you know, I will miss it, but I'm very excited to move on to the next chapter of my life. I'm actually kind of extremely excited to see what happens next. Also like to tell our staff for Oak Island that they're the best staff in the world. I've worked with 2 municipalities. Southport was wonderful. They were my teammates. I was there for 5 years. But Oak Island has the top of the line when it comes to staff and the hard workers and their devotion to us and to this community. And last but not least is my council, or our council. I'm so proud of them, and all of you, as all of you should be. They make tough decisions every day, and it's not easy being on this side of the table, trust me. And I think they will all tell you the same thing. I love you all. I wish you the best. Mayor Thomas, I wish you the best. I know you have the love for Oak Island that I do, and I look forward to seeing what the next couple of years will bring. And that's all for me. How about you, John?
Thank you. Again, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned at the last meeting, you have been both fair and gracious, and thank you for all that you have done. Condolences to my colleague, Councilman Weinkauf, on the loss of your brother. On a happier note, congratulations to all the employees, particularly those of the rec department. I thought the seasonal activities were really quite joyous this year. The parade, especially the public works float in the parade. I really like that. And also, I would take note of the continued generosity of our citizens to many different causes, and that's always heartening to see, particularly at this time of year. And finally, for all the people who have emailed or called about the new business tonight, I appreciate your concerns, and we're going to have a chance to discuss them publicly. I intend to ratify your concerns. Thank you.
The only thing I need to say is thank you to our outgoing mayor, Mayor Sin. She's been a wonderful leader, and she always encouraged all of us. Thank you to staff, always. Thank you to our Public Works Department. I see a whole slew of them back there. Most of the Christmas things that are done by Parks and Rec, we appreciate tremendously, but we also know that some of it couldn't be done without you guys helping us. Also, I'd like to ask if David could set up some sort of meeting with maybe Caswell Beach before hurricane season, maybe in February or March, to kind of compare readiness, hurricane preparations, that sort of thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the skate park. Lots of you don't know exactly how that skate park came to be. A very dear friend of mine, who was also an ex-husband of mine, paved the parking lot at what used to be Bell's Supply. And the kids were coming up there to skate in that paved parking lot. And he was scared of liability, so he kept running them off, kept posting signs. He'd come back in the next morning and he would find the ramps and things back behind the building where they were coming at night after he left. So he got together and he came up with people who were willing to donate money, donate land, I'm not sure, I don't remember the specifics because it's been a long time, and built the skate park, which is why it now holds the name Kevin Pell Skate Park. I would like to add that maybe we need to talk about that maybe in the budget retreat about how we could post signs that would limit our liability. That would be you.
There's a statute that addresses it.
Okay. Okay.
Very favorable for towns. My firm's actually litigating one right now.
Good deal. Okay. If we could just add that maybe to talk about, David, in the budget retreat. Thank you.
Councilman Blaylock?
To echo what everybody else has said, thank you so much for your service. Thank you. You've been an inspiration to all of us. You're always positive. And we're going to miss you, but you're still around, right? I mean, you're not going anywhere.
Be here.
All right. That's good news. Okay. Jeff, condolences, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to pick up on what Councilman Bell, Councilperson Bell.
Whatever you want to call me, Charlie.
I'd be careful with that
Hey, you.
No. Anyway, I'm sorry. Getting back to the skate park, I think it's a great project to explore. I would like to see. The only thing that worries me, of course, is mostly the legalities involved. But I'm sure our esteemed council lawyer will check into that for us. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Charlie, I want to add one thing to yours. I had a lot of apprehension about the splash pad. I don't know if y'all remember, but I was totally against not having it supervised, and I lost that battle. And I went out there on Labor Day. Was it Labor Day? Yeah, the first it starts in Labor Day. And I went at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to see all this confusion that I imagined would be there because there was no one there to supervise. And it was awesome. It was awesome all summer. There was never a supervision. So, I mean, I won't be here to vote or even have any say in any of it, but I would like to go on the record to say that I was wrong and David was right. And I would think we've probably had the same outcome with the skate park guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for your condolences. It was a tough week. I'd like to say Parks and Rec and our Public Works did an excellent job. It's the largest turnout I think I've ever seen for a tree lighting. It was a great crowd. The parade was wonderful. Big turnout, beautiful day. And Madam Mayor, I want to say thank you. You opened the door to Raleigh. We made them hear what we had to say, and
For what that's worth.
I'm glad you pushed us that way.
Thank you, Jeff. I've enjoyed working with all of you. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 12th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, Lisa. We have one committee appointment tonight, and that's to the ABC Board, and we have one applicant, or one, do we call them applicants? Or one volunteer, would be Jeffrey Flom. All in favor of Jeffrey, raise your hands. Thank you. Unanimous, Lisa. Administrative reports. Mr.
Yes,
Town Manager, it's your time to shine.
It's the town's time. Registration for the Citizen Academy has started. If you need to get in touch with Rose Brom to get signed up for that. We're still looking at doing about 30 to 35 people, so you need to get signed up pretty quick to be able to get in there. Paving is almost wrapped up. They still have an area down at Kings Lynn. Everybody knows about the bad area there right before the parking lot, so they'll be down there trying to fix that and pave that here as soon as the weather permits. Pier construction is actually wrapping up. The contractors should be wrapping up hopefully before the end of the year. If not, he'll be back in January to finish putting in the bait tank pump and some electrical workforce. And we want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for the last 4 years.
Welcome.
That's all I have at this time.
Madam Mayor, I have several questions for Mr. Kelly, if I
Certainly,
may.
go ahead.
So, Mr. Kelly, on page 28, the Public Utilities Report shows 81 completed service orders for need-to-read bill, manual, or not reading on SA. Is that a meter issue? What is that? What does that numeric represent?
It is a meter issue. It could be on either the computer side or the field side. You have two people that go out and monitor these. When they come in the mornings, they see how many. If they didn't read that night, it could have been a car parked over top of them or those kind of things. And that's what that indicates for the month.
Let me just broaden my question, if I may, out a little bit further. So when we talked about the installation of the meters, more accurate reading, giving customers the opportunity to regulate, et cetera, there was a discussion of the extremely low failure rate for the meters. Has that been our experience?
Yes, sir.
This number seems high to me.
No, a lot of this is meters that they've either done landscaping on, somebody's cut the wire, locate when they come through, or some utility work has gone through and cut something, or damage to it. The good part about this system that we installed, last month we only had 14 meters that did not read for billing. We used to have to go out and get 280 readings, and now we're down to 14.
So if I understand your answer, a lot of the causation for the 81 incidents is external. It's not our meter failing. It's somebody digging it up or
yes, sir.
Driving a truck over it, et cetera. Thank you. And one other, if I may, just a comment, Madam Mayor, because I've consistently, meeting after meeting, asked Mr. Varias for better numbers on the right-of-way, and indeed they are finally here. Quadruple numbers of right-of-way violations being opened, closed, so I know Jake isn't here, but please tell him that I did find the numbers I've been looking for, because this is a council-approved initiative to improve our community, and we needed to move forward, and we need to be able to measure that, and so the measurement is here. Thank you.
Good. All right.
Madam Mayor, I want to echo everyone's sentiments. I thank you for your public service to this town. You've done a great job, and you will be missed, and hopefully we'll see you out here some. Secondly,
I hope I'm as good as the previous Mayor Wallace, and she kind of just let me do my job. I plan to do the same thing for Mr. Thomas, Mayor Thomas.
well, we hope you'll stay involved with the community. We thank you for your service. Mr. Weinkoff, I mentioned to you privately, but my condolences to your loss, sir. With respect to the skate park, there's a statute that limits liability for injuries caused by the skateboarding itself. And the way you invoke the protection of that statute, you pass an ordinance requiring the wearing of helmets, knee pads, and elbow pads, and you have to post signs. Reasonable notice is a standard in the statute. You post signs at the skate park. And the town and its employees would be insulated from liability for injuries related to the actual skateboarding, the activity itself. Now, you have to keep it in decent repair, and if there's another danger, you have to warn of dangers that you knew or should have known outside of the danger associated with actually skateboarding. So there is a statute. The General Assembly, in its wisdom, has given us some protection on that. So, and that's all I have other than closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next part of the agenda is the consideration of memorandum of understanding with the Coast Guard, and I understand we had Petty Officer York. Come on up to the podium, please. I think this was on the agenda last month, and we asked for more detail.
So last month, we visited the memorandum of understanding that we would have to respond to the Coast Guard station and that was their wish and something that they had approached the fire department about. The council did have some questions, and obviously I'm the fire chief, I'm not a member of the Coast Guard, so they were questions I can't speak on their behalf. So Patrick York is representing the Coast Guard today, so you can ask those questions and hopefully he'll be able to answer your questions for you.
Open the floor for discussion. Anybody?
Yeah, I do. It seemed from the language, and I'm on page 30 of the agenda, that there was a nearly open-ended requirement for Oak Island to respond with all sorts of equipment, and questions from Councilman Scott sort of were going in that direction. And I believe, Councilor, Mr. Eddies, you offered an amendment of Article E, will at a minimum provide equipment and personnel to the type and nature of the fire. Makes it sound like it's a compulsory response for us. And I think that needs to be clarified, that we're going to come every time and we're going to bring exactly what you asked for. And I'm stating it in extremis, so to get an answer.
Yes, it's just whatever the Oak Island Fire Department can provide. That's what we're requesting. If we were to get a fire, we would contact the dispatch and ask for whatever they could provide, Oak Island, Southport, Yopon.
So we are very much secondary, not the primary responder, and whatever equipment and manpower we have available is what you would request.
Yes.
So, Counselor, I still like your amendment is, I believe, on page 14 in the minutes.
Yes.
You were playing with that last clause there, and I think that probably should be cleaned up.
Right. Petty Officer, what I proposed, and I did get your rank right, is that right? Proposed that we qualify that saying to the extent it's reasonably possible for the town. We don't have unlimited resources or unlimited manpower, so the reasonable component would qualify that obligation. Councilmember Bach, I believe that's what you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the sentiment, I don't want to speak for council, but I believe the sentiment expressed was that we want to be a supportive neighbor. We obviously want to support the Coast Guard. We're a neighboring town, but it was the language that seemed to suggest something like, all hands on deck, and we may not be able to do that. So it sounds like it's a much more measured call for assistance. And our attorney has some simple changes there I think would reflect that.
And if the changes I proposed at last month are incorporated into the contract, I'm fine with the contract as amended.
As an individual member, I'm fully supported with your changes attached, Counselor.
Any questions? Entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Coast Guard to provide fire service as amended.
Second.
All in favor, please. Unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your service.
Next on the agenda is the consideration of a proposed amendment, Section 2-991E, Appointment and Qualifications for Appointment.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend Section 2-91 by removing subsection E as presented. And basically, all this is doing is cleaning up where we dissolved the Beach Preservation Advisory Board.
That's correct. This is a housekeeping
Yes, just housekeeping.
request that we made at the
They are
last
now a
meeting.
nonprofit.
I'll second
All in
Councilor
favor?
Bell's motion.
Thank you. Consideration of proposal of section, I have two, section 2-91A, 35.
Yes, ma'am.
At the November 12, 2019 council meeting, staff was directed to prepare a separate action item for proposed amendment section 2-91A, the change of advertising for the vacant advisory board and committee positions to once a month was made in the rules of procedure in February 2016, but the corresponding amendment to the ordinance was overlooked. While reviewing the particular ordinance for another reason, staff noticed the discrepancy and brought the amendment to the council. So this is another housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
At the last meeting, these two particular amendments were co-joined. I moved to separate them. I think they should be separated, and I'll make a motion to support this now that it is standing alone.
Thank you, Councilman Bach. All, second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous, Lisa. Consideration of a contract for the 2019-2020 beach nourishment project, and welcome, Mr. Martin. I'm going to miss you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish I had better news tonight for the consideration on the beach nourishment project, but I'll just go over where we are and be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay.
So the project went out for bid on November 1st. We had the first bid opening date on November 26th, and we had no bids that were received. We had discussions with the contract holders or the potential contractors to identify changes to make the project more attractive, and they told us that completion of the base bid volume only during this season would make it more attractive. We made that change to the project, and the project was rebid on December 5th. And that was when we had the rebid opening date, and we only received one bid during that time, and it was for $16.1 million for the base bid of 530,000 cubic yards. Our project budget for that was roughly $11.5 million. Our engineer's estimate was roughly $11.7. So at $16.1 million, that's roughly a unit rate of about $30.34 a cubic yard. We did certify the bid to make sure it was, compliant with all the state laws. We informed the contractor that we wanted to have a discussion with the town before officially opening negotiations. In the interim, the contractor sent us an email informing us that they were not willing to negotiate, but they were willing to honor the original bid. As far as the permits, we are in final discussions with the agencies concerning the likely permit conditions, but the town of Bald Head has raised concerns about our use of Jaybird Shoals and how that affects their monitoring and monitoring and potential mitigation requirements that they had for their project when they used Jaybird Shoals for the Terminal Groin project. Over the last couple of days, we've been talking with DCM about trying to set up a meeting to see if we can come to some resolution to their concern quickly, but we're still in the process of that. We talked to the state and FEMA about an extension, and the initial feedback is positive. And we've had some discussions with them about potentially adjusting the budget given the market forces that we're seeing with these projects, happening really all over the East Coast. We're also working with the state on the Florence grant of $3.1 million. We could get that in March of April. So we really see sort of two options. So the town could accept the bid and hope that we could work out the permit issues, get the $3.1 million, and we still have to come up with another 1.5 in order to get up to the 16.1. Or the other option is that, and again, we could try to negotiate with them even though they've said that they would not. And then the second one is that we could work out the permit issues and then rebid the project as soon as possible, hopefully in early spring, and get out ahead of sort of all the projects for next year. So that's really sort of an update of where we are, and be happy to entertain any questions from the council and look for direction on how we should move forward.
So any council member have questions for Mr. Martin?
I have one. Why is it so difficult to get people to bid on projects like this?
Well, there's a lot of work. There's been so many hurricanes over the last number of years that there is work going on in Florida. In fact, the reason that we rushed to get the rebid out December 5th is that we knew that there was another project being bid in Boca Raton, Florida on the 6th, so we were trying to get out ahead of that. And it's just, there's just a ton of these types of projects out there, and there's only 3 to 4 companies, as we've talked about in the past, that can do this type of work. So it's, I guess it's a buyer's market, or that's, I guess, the way to say it right now as far as the contractor's market. So, we feel that we would get better bids probably next year, but it does delay the project.
Thank you, sir.
So we don't have a permit yet, correct?
No, we do not have the permits finalized yet. We were in discussions over the last couple of weeks. They had told us that we should get them by Christmas, and we were in discussions with the agencies about the permit conditions that they were going to put onto the permits. And that's usually right before you get them, but then this issue with Bald Head bringing up this and the potential, in their letter they mentioned that they may appeal our permit if it were to move forward. Now, again, we're talking with DCM to see if, depending on what that means, could they go ahead and give us the permit and we could move forward? And then if Bald Head appeals, would it stop or would it go before the CRC? But we haven't gotten answers to all those questions yet, which is why we're trying to set up those meetings as quickly as we can.
So there are companies that are actually working, that are doing beach renourishment projects for other municipalities, correct?
Right, right.
So how many of those municipalities does your firm represent?
Just one other. And I'll say this too, I mean, that's why we were really trying to make sure that we really spent a lot of effort trying to look at Central Reach to see if that would give enough beach compatible material, because we were always concerned that with Jaybird that this issue might come up, and unfortunately just everywhere else we looked offshore ended up being not beach compatible.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
I have a question for Mr. Kelly, and you can defer on this if you would like. So I'm going to suggest that with a lone bidder, he or she are not going to negotiate against themselves. So that leaves us basically with two options. And I would like the administration's recommendation as to which option would be preferable, and I don't need it tonight, but just I think we need some guidance from the administration as to the two options Mr. Martin has given us, because I do not expect negotiations. I can't imagine that bidder negotiating against himself.
And if we push it back, we're looking at, what, winter next year?
The earliest we could start construction would be November 16th. And again, just given the market, and again, Sam Morrison can come up and talk about this too. He worked with Great Lakes for 30 years, but what I would say is the more flexibility you can put into the contract, the better bid you're going to give. So, I mean, we could say, if we want to say for doing it next year, we could say we want you to be here November 16th, but anytime you put any sort of restriction on them, your price can change or go up. So, my hope would be is that we could put this out in February or March after we work out the issues with Bald Head and go ahead and get it ahead of the projects for next year.
And you're not talking about February or March of 2020, are you?
No, I'm talking about having the getting out to bid. Yes, ma'am. So it would still be in November of
2020.
Yes, ma'am. It would.
Before we put sand on the beach.
Yes.
What does the state say? I mean, what does FEMA say about the money that they're holding for us?
We've talked to them about getting the extensions. Right now we have an extension that runs out in October. They'll finalize it usually 30 to 60 days out before that date is when they'll give you the formal letter. The discussions we've had with them over the last 2 weeks is they're favorable, and that's all they can say at this time. Also, Johnny and them sent the bid totals to them, so they were able to see what the actual costs are right now. And when we talked to Brian Snell, he actually said that he would go back to see if we were allotted more money, since the project costs were more, to be able to see if we could get more than the, I believe, $8.5 million is what we have right now.
Well, a lot has changed since 2016 when we submitted that first project. A lot has changed. 2 more hurricanes in between, a lot more towns needing it.
And I do want to say too that, one of the reasons you remember why we had to go for this, looking for the material offshore, was the project that we did do with the Dune project back with Matthew, and we had the issues with the Upland Borough site, and we were told at that time by FEMA, just given some of the issues that happened with that site, they were contemplating not reimbursing us for the project just because of the quality of the material. So they told us on these next projects that they highly suggested we go out and find beach compatible material so that we didn't have this issue again. So again, that's that's a real reason why it's just been really difficult to find the beach compatible material here in this area.
Yeah, but I think the council certainly understood from the very beginning of this project that was going to be one of the biggest issues. Any more questions for Mr. Martin? I think that's got it. Thank you, Johnny.
So I guess, David, you'll let us know.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
So David, what we're looking for here is just a guidance, or you wanting a motion, or?
Councilman Bach asked a question a few minutes ago about what staffs would recommend. Talking with Mr. Hatton and the state and the FEMA, I don't believe we should negotiate, because I do not believe they'll negotiate the price down. They were the sole bidder. We would recommend that we ask Johnny and them to go ahead and proceed, release that bid, get the documents for the next phase, and get this out as soon as we can. But we may need to look at it as we'll start on November 16th, but we may need to put a completion date in there to give them some leeway to see if we could get a better price on it on the back end side of it. So we'd recommend giving Johnny and them authorization to go ahead and proceed to get a second bid for us as soon as we have the permit, February or March.
Mr. Eads, would that be better in the form of a motion for the record?
I think staff, and, I mean, there's not a pending contract, right?
No.
Yeah, I think if that's the consensus of council, does anyone have any?
All right, well, let's poll the council. John?
So thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, so you are selecting the rebid option,
Yes, sir.
which would go out January, February, March of this year, 2020, I'm sorry, the upcoming year.
Yes, sir. As soon as we work through this issue with Bald Head and can receive the permits.
Okay. So what I heard you say, and I'm going to presume this bid has fewer restrictions in it. That's what will make it more attractive, correct?
Well, we'll be out ahead of...
Well, other than the timing, are we going to
Right.
have fewer restrictions, therefore make this more attractive to bidders?
Well, there'll just be more time to complete it done. There'll be, November 16th. And again, they haven't, these companies usually book up their projects 6 to 8 months in advance, depending on what's happening. Sometimes it's not that much. We were hopeful we would get 2 bidders for this project, is what we were hopeful for. We ended up getting 1, so.
Yeah, the current bid, Councilman Bach, we had a real tight schedule to get done before the turtle season started. And that was one of the things that was discussed. Johnny and them had changed the depths of the sand and the machines that they could use to be able to come in and get the sand. And that is something that he would have to go back and look at and see if he still wanted the hopper dredge or the pipeline. That is.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
We're going to rebid it, and it's going to have fewer restrictions. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I think the hesitation is fewer restrictions. It's a more liberal time frame to get the work done in, which will operate as less restrictions, yes.
Let's call it what it is.
Right. I agree with you. I think that's the translation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Councilman Bach. You in
Yes, I'm
agreement?
fine.
Agreement with rebidding?
I am, but with grave reservation.
But speak your mind. You have anything to say?
I'm good.
Nothing else? You good?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, you have your marching orders there, David.
All right,
Thank you, John.
Lisa, you let the minutes reflect that was a consensus, unanimous consensus.
All righty. Our agenda is calling for a closed session. Is that still required? That's good?
Madam Mayor, I need to make a motion to go into closed session to discuss specific personnel pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A6.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Raise hand. Okay, thank you. We'll be back.
I mean, seriously.
Here the next several years.
Come on. At this time, I'll call the meeting back to order. I'll make the statement that there was no action taken in closed session. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn this part of the meeting.
No.
Recess.
Recess.
Recess for 5 minutes to change.
We don't have to, you said adjourn, David.
I know, that's my
Or
fault.
we recess the meeting, take a 5-minute break, and then come back and swear in our new officers.
Okay.
Does that work, Lisa,
I don't
for the
need, I mean,
minutes?
do they may need a...
Mr. Attorney,
Brian?
is that?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the next order of business. It is. And you need a few minutes to bring everybody, are you ready to go?
I'd go 5 minutes, let everybody get in place.
I think we listened to the Madam Mayor, so.
Do you need a motion, Madam Mayor, or is that?
No, you can call a
Yes.
recess yourself, 5
You can
minutes.
call the recess yourself.
5 minutes.
Okay, I'm calling a recess for 5 minutes while we switch over and everybody gets in place, and then we will enter the meeting.
We'll be back in session.
Be back in session. The swearing in of your new officers, or old and new officers.
I'll try it. Because we're big breakfast people. That's what we do. Dinner, we do breakfast.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I've wanted to do this for 22 years.
we're going to call this meeting back to order. The next item of business would be the installation of the newly elected officials. So I would ask Mayor-elect Thomas to approach the lectern to be sworn in. And it's my understanding the Honorable Bill Gore is going to swear Mayor-elect in. Is that correct?
I'm here in my capacity as a retired Superior Court judge, and by statute, I retain the authority to be able to administer oaths of office.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes, sir.
I'm also here in my capacity as a friend of the mayor-elect, and it's my privilege to administer his oath of office. I will say that I have been presented proof of his election, and knowing of no impediments to his taking this office at this time, I'd like to administer his oath.
Yes, sir.
You will repeat after me and place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I, Ken Thomas, do solemnly swear
I, Ken Thomas, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of Mayor of the Town of Oak Island,
of the office of Mayor of the Town of Oak Island,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I am about to enter,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you, Judge Gore. Thank you.
And I think we have 2 oaths for him to sign. Yeah. I need to sign it as well.
Yep.
You keep that.
That's true.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Welcome, ma'am. On the agenda, it is Councilmember Bell next.
Good evening.
And the Honorable Jason Disbrow will be administering the oath, I believe, to the next 3.
That's correct. Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, please. I, Sheila M. Bell,
Sheila M. Bell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
I will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
of the town of Oak Island,
of the town of Oak Island,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
according to my best skill and ability.
according to my best skill and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sign one, Sheila, and then I'll sign. Go ahead, sign both of them.
Councilmember Blaylock, you're next, even though you're not following the rules. I'm just kidding.
Charlie, step on up. Yes, sir. Left hand about, raise your right hand.
Changed.
Raise your right hand if you would. I, Charlie K. Blaylock,
I, Charlie K. Blaylock,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of council member
as the office of council member
of the town of Oak Island,
of the town of Oak Island,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
according to my best skill and ability,
according to my best skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Councilmember Jeff Weinkauf.
Wow, looking sharp.
Oh, wow.
I, Jeff Weinkauf,
I, Jeff Weinkauf,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North
and
Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of council member of the town of Oak Island,
of the town of Oak Island,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
according to my best skill and ability.
according to my best skill and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, Jason.
Go, Jeff. Just sign these. One more.
Is this your first grand baby?
Yeah.
You don't have any grandchildren?
This would be number one. Hopefully gonna get the schedule modified. Otherwise, you'll have to proceed without.
Jeff just told me that little boy's going to be a heck of a ball player. Hope they have some good umpires up there for him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would like the minutes to reflect the town's thanks to both Judge Gore and Judge Disbrow for tonight's services. And if it's okay with the council, Ms. Stites, if you let the minutes reflect. Thank you. Mayor Thomas?
Yes, sir. I guess I wanted to say take a minute. I've read a statement. I'd like to start by thanking the citizens of Oak Island for putting their faith in me and reassure you that your faith is not misplaced. I will help the town move forward to a place of financial stability. I would like to thank the previous town council and administration on all their hard work, which was a lot. We're a small town with limited resources, and there are a great many needs for these resources. Two of our greatest are stormwater correction and a beach that is usable for our citizens, our tourists. We are a beach town, and that is our prime attraction. As I and the town council look forward to the town's next endeavors to work towards a more physically sound budget, I expect that our citizens and council will have to make some hard but financially sound decisions, including saying no to some people. We cannot be distracted from our town economic needs by developers that would threaten our economic position by spending a great promise. I intend to use my position as mayor to strengthen our economic position in the future as well to meet our current needs. With this council and your help, I feel like we will move forward to better times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Does anybody else want to say anything?
As chair, you can allow them to if you'd like, sir.
Yes,
Any other council member wish to?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
I hope you know what you get yourself into.
It was explained to me that we in a big fish bowl with targets on our backs. If it's okay, we'll go ahead and move to item agenda, new business number 2. Town council's rules of procedure state that during the December council meeting, that is to select a mayor pro tem for the upcoming year. I want to open the floor for nominations.
Mr. Mayor, I have such a nomination. I nominate my colleague, Councilman Weinkoff, as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
All right.
You can do it two ways. You can take a vote on that, or you can open it up to any additional nominations.
Are there any additional nominations? Oh, well, then we'll take a vote. All in favor? Welcome aboard to.
It's unanimous.
Pro Tem again.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. New business item, agenda number 3. Town Council rules of procedure state that at its meeting in December, Council will approve a list of regular meeting dates for the coming year. Staff has indicated a suggested date for Council annual retreat as well. The regular meeting dates are listed, but none of these meetings are designated as town hall meetings. Council may want to discuss the town hall meeting schedule. Number 3, I think I already know that need to go to discussion because there's been changes made already.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I have a request of my colleagues to alter the schedule in January on both ends. I have, I like to think of it as an extraordinary family event about to happen, the birth of the first grandchild. So if we could move the January meeting to Monday, the 13th, and if that is acceptable to my colleagues, and move the retreat to the 30th, which is a Thursday.
The retreat to January the 30th?
Yes, for the annual retreat.
Is that far enough for you?
Well, I don't want to meet on Friday. The 30th will be good enough, yes, thank you.
I think the 30th is the Essentials of Municipal Government class
Yes,
that
it is.
Mayor Thomas wanted to attend.
Can we move to the first week? Are we precluded by charter? Do we have to have the retreat in January, Councilor?
Yeah, we had looked at February 6th, I believe, the first Thursday.
That works for me. That certainly gives a much better cushion. Is that good for my colleagues? I thank you for the indulgence.
The 6th, and y'all can decide.
Mr. Mayor, I am good with the rest of the schedule. Thank you.
All right.
I think the appropriate motion would be to adopt the meeting schedule on page 41 of the agenda as amended, with the January meeting being January 13th and the retreat being February 6th, Lisa, I think if we adopt it that way, it'll be considered our regularly scheduled meetings.
Yes, sir, I didn't know if Mr. Kelly wanted to address the issue of town hall meetings.
Town hall meetings, we would like to sort of get more of a definition on what they would like to have. We've been trying to keep it to no agenda items or comments or things like that. On certain items, we've had the public come in and they have things that they are waiting on, and we didn't feel the need to push them back. If there was something that was a text amendment or something that was holding up a building permit or something like that, we'd still like to have that on the schedule to be heard. But we're open to discussion to define what a town hall meeting needs to be. If someone could tell us exactly what they would and would not like on that meeting.
Well, I'll begin the discussion, if that's with your permission, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, Councilman Weinkoff deserves credit for proposing this idea, and it has been, I think, an important process, but I think it's one that can be improved. So from my perspective, the leaner the agenda, the better. Arguably, there are going to be times when there are moments of great occasion, causes, issues, initiatives that the public should have the opportunity to weigh in on. But beyond that, I think we should, it's an opportunity for council to listen to the public and to respond to their concerns if appropriate. So the more listening we do, the better. And I think that in the past we've had some presentations in front of the town hall, and that's detracted from it. So I would suggest a leaner agenda, one driven by necessity and giving the citizens the opportunity to address council and to address the community's needs. That's how I would define town hall.
With an agenda? Is that what you're saying?
With a minimal agenda.
And that's the way I sort of visioned it when I sort of introduced this, was letting everybody ask questions of us so we get more of an understanding of what's going on.
But with specific subjects?
Well, they could actually send stuff to us if they wanted topics to talk about too. And that way we actually know what's going on. But it needs to be more of an open, because we've got to where we have all these meetings now afterwards, and it's sort of like limited. And it needs to be more open for everybody to be able to talk, communicate, and learn, instead of something like it's more uniformed. So that's the way I've envisioned it when I wanted to start.
But I don't think we should require staff to determine what we discuss.
No. Not staff.
Because sometimes they have a hard time deciding what it is that the public wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should certainly solicit public input. But my concept is I'll call it a hybrid model. So there are some things of necessity we have to deal with because it's time sensitive. And we keep those to the absolute minimum.
Right.
There are some clearly identifiable challenges which should be the subject of public discussion. Beach renourishment for one, pine forest for a second. You know, those are things that we know now should be discussed publicly. Beyond that, I think then the free flow of conversation from the public to us.
And some other stuff while we're doing it, because we've all talked about the rec center, how it needs to be redone. Well, it needs to be in a town hall meeting style where they can tell us things they want to see, and we can document some of this stuff. We've had surveys done.
I agree with you, but what I'm suggesting is if that's a defined subject, that's one meeting,
Yes.
the rec center.
Yes.
Beach renourishment's another one, not that we pile them all up
I
together.
agree. Yes.
I agree.
So the question I would have is, you just got through the master plan for the rec department is now completed and ready to present to council. Would that be a town hall meeting, or would you rather have that as a regular meeting? Would you like,
I would say put that in a regular meeting, but still have as a topic as a town hall meeting, because before we even start looking at what we want to adopt, we need to hear what everybody really wants. I mean, I think the master plan was just a
concept.
Yeah.
Are we saying that we're gonna have a basic modified town hall meeting each month?
No, it's once a quarter we have a town hall. So
Once a
January,
quarter.
yeah. So every 3 months we have a town hall style meeting to be able to
See,
hear.
that was what I was, I'm asking, what is the dates for the town hall
It'll
meeting?
be the 13th. Isn't that the next meeting we have, January 13th?
January 13th.
Be the next one.
Are you still wanting to do it quarterly? I mean, Those are just questions that we have.
I mean, I think 4 times a year, if we do it any less, you really don't get that connection. I'd like to keep it at 4 times a year. I don't know about y'all.
What is the date you would like?
We usually do January, then we'd do, April? Is that when the next one?
Should be March.
March, all right.
June.
June, that's the budget meeting. We can't do it in June.
Don't do it in June.
No, July. July. And then we'll push it back to October.
So that'd be January, March, July, and October.
Yep.
And so for the January meeting, we have 2 ordinance amendments requested by citizens. So, I mean, we.
Well, after that one, we can get more.
That would be the essential.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right, you're gonna take a vote, agree to that?
Well,
Make a motion?
So it would be, the schedule as depicted on page 41 of the agenda packet, amended as follows. The January meeting will be on the 13th. The retreat will be on February 6th. The January meeting on the 13th will be a town hall format. The March 10th meeting will be a town hall format. The July 14th meeting will be the town hall format. And the October 13th meeting will be in the town hall format. Is that correct?
Yes.
So to adopt the schedule on page 41 as amended.
I make that motion, Councilor, Mr. Mayor, to adopt the schedule as amended to incorporate town hall meetings.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's passed. And now, wasn't it? I thought, some conversation, but yeah. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the Cape Fear Council of Government plans and administrates a variety of federal, state, and local programs. The COG recently reminded all municipalities that the appointment of a representative to the COG should be done annually, even if the same representative is chosen. Mayor Pro Tem Wyckoff has served as Oak Island for several years.
I would like for that to continue.
I'd second that.
Well, it's up here where I work at, so it's close by.
Yeah. All in favor?
So is the motion is to nominate Councilmember
Yes.
Blunt.
Yeah.
Made by Councilor Bell, seconded, and all in favor?
All right. I'm getting better at it. Item agenda number 5, contract for financial consulting services from DEC. The town has been approached by developers to establish a special assessment district to fund infrastructure for a portion of the Pine Forest development. Given the complexity of creating such a district and in order to ensure that all potential financial impacts of the town are considered, council may want to staff to utilize a financial consultant before spending any funds. Staff is looking for directions from council as to whether this should be pursued.
I'll adjust that, Mr. Mayor, with your permission.
Yes, sir.
And I want to say at the beginning that I think we are the stewards of the public trust, the public's resources, and that everything that we do should be defined by diligence, by analysis, but most importantly, it should conform to an overarching public purpose. We have had discussions, and conceptually they are interesting, but only to a point. Although it's legally permissible to create an SAD, I believe the request does not satisfy a great and overwhelming public purpose. I cannot prioritize private development in a gated community over stormwater maintenance, beach renourishment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are many, many needs. Nor am I willing to commit the town to potential risk, even a small risk, given our financial condition. So I vote no on this. I am opposed, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Ditto.
I don't understand what the town's business would be helping out an independent contractor. I agree. If it's such a great idea, why can't they pay for it? So that's where I'm coming from. So I'm no.
I still don't have all the answers. I mean, I don't know all the answers. I'd still like to find out the answers. I'd be in favor of tabling this. Do I know answers?
Let me just say this, and I know we disagree on this, and I have the utmost respect for you, sir. I don't think we should take this step at all. I think this needs to die tonight. This is a bad idea. And I think I think that, well, let me ask a question. I think this will help. So, Mr. Kelly, the administration, does it support this?
After the last meeting that we had with them, and basically both the meetings that we had with them was just an oversight on how this process would take place if the town would go forward with this. It was just an explanation of the process. There has not been a letter of intent or anything going forward.
I understand that. Do you support it, is my question.
With that, at this time, staff has looked at it with David Hatton. We called the Mooresville, and we've called the former manager and finance director that was there. And talking with them, I don't believe it was something that we would go forward with.
Thank you. I appreciate your support on that.
So do we need a motion to?
To clarify two things, both Mr. Kelly and Councilmember Bach referenced meetings. I just want the minutes to reflect that there was not a quorum present at any of those meetings.
That's correct.
I've not met with anyone, and that was some of the public was saying, why hasn't this been brought up? It's only been discussed in bits and pieces with staff and with several council members. All of us were not privy to any information concerning this, except for what was sent to us by email through Mr. Kelly, which was last week, once the agenda came out.
And secondly, I understood Mr. Kelly's response to Councilmember Bach. At this point, staff would not recommend going forward.
Correct.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just want to make sure that was clear in the minutes, too.
Thank you for the clarity, Councilor. So there's a motion, it's seconded, and it's been voted on, correct? Did you call for a vote,
We haven't
Mr.
done
Mayor?
anything. That was my question.
There's not been a motion.
I asked for a second, and I didn't
No,
get
he
it.
made a motion.
Is there a second?
I don't think.
There's a second.
What
What was your motion? That was my question to Brian.
There was no motion,
Mr.
Councilman.
Bach, I thought said no.
As I recall,
He did, but he didn't make it in the form of a motion.
Okay.
as I recall, Councilmember Bach said something to the effect of, "I'll go," and started the discussion. I don't recall a
No,
motion.
I
Okay.
ended my statement by saying I am no on this proposal.
Well, do we-
Emphatically no. So that is my
But
motion.
you don't get to a yes or no until there's a motion on the table.
Motion
And I
not to
was asking
pursue.
for a motion.
Fine. I'll
I
make a
was
motion.
asking for a motion.
I move that this particular contract not be leaded, not be approved.
Second.
All, yeah,
It's unanimous.
everybody. Thank you. Let's see. Consideration of a resolution regarding the CPI discharge permit. I don't have that except right here and here. Let's see.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
think-
I have the resolution, and Mr. Kelly has asked me to introduce it.
Summarize it, or
I will summarize it in view of where we are. But I do want to say that administration and council were quick to respond to CPI and its potential pollution of our ocean and waterway. We have worked cooperatively with other towns to oppose this sort of discharge. CPI, as you may know, thanks to our esteemed journalist has left, but due to his work, it was revealed that CPI is burning tires and wood pellets and is operating under Duke Energy's permit, and they have now come up to be re-permitted. And so there's a lot of language in here about our ocean community, nearby towns, potential pollution. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has a variety of measurements that they will bring to bear. This is the heart of the resolution. I'm going to read this for the record. Mr. Mayor, do you have a copy?
Yes, sir.
You do? Okay. So now, therefore, be it resolved by the Town of Oak Island Council that, in the best interest of environmental and public safety for the Town of Oak Island and other Brunswick County communities, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, before issuing a final permit, shall make available to the public all modeling, existing individual component historical modeling data, and risk assessments, whether provided by CPI or performed by the department itself or other scientifically qualified entities, which can be used to understand the level of risk associated with this discharge. Be it resolved that before any decision is taken by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality on granting 2 permits in question for CPI, additional public hearings shall be held and an additional period of public comment on the applications and proposed draft permits shall be offered. That should read this day, the 17th of December. You've got that, Lisa. And it will require your signature, Mr. Mayor.
All right. They told me to ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Can I say something real quick? I attended that licensing meeting, so everybody knows. You would not believe some of the stuff the homeowners in around the Southport area are living through. There's dust on their houses, dust on their cars, and they're breathing this stuff. And it's very harmful to them. The question was asked from the doctor who just got elected mayor, what kind of harm will it do to somebody? And this is serious stuff, and we need to be proactive against this.
Thank you. Counselor?
All right, down the vote. I'm raising my hand just looking. I can't vote, but anyway. Used to business meeting. All right, I entertain the motion to go into closed session.
I make a motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3.
And
second.
Mr. Mayor, just for the minutes, purpose of the minutes, there'll be a discussion concerning pending litigation, and the parties to the litigation are the first case is Bowles, B-O-L-E-S versus the Town of Oak Island. That's the one presently pending before the North Carolina Supreme Court. The second case is Johnson versus Oak Island, and that is pending in Brunswick County Superior Court. And the third case is CFL Homes versus Oak Island.
Thank you. Now that we have a second, all in favor?
We have a second? We did.
We did.
They stopped us before y'all voted. I'm sorry. I thought it was. Okay. Has he got it ready? We're back in session, and no action was taken in closed meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
One time a mayor should be able to vote.
Adjourn. Merry Christmas.
I was
Everyone.
Lisa, see her shaking her head.
Merry Christmas. Your grandson did a great job.